The Trump regime's attempt to freeze federal spending for grants and loans issued on Monday night lasted only 2 days. The move, which was met with confusion and outrage, was seen as a radical attempt to reshape federal spending and was criticized by everyone, Republicans and eventually Democrats when they got around to it. Trump claimed that the freeze was necessary to identify and eliminate waste and fraud, but it was a chaotic and poorly executed move that caused unnecessary harms to programs and people all over the country and all over the world. I'm Alan, and this is the Difficult Opinions Podcast. You know, the United States pays an enormous amount of money to practically everybody. I mean, of course, there are some exceptions, but practically everyone in the United States somehow benefits from a direct federal payment, whether it's because you need to eat, or you need to go to the doctor, or you need to have someone take care of one of your relatives, or something like that. Even business interests, even social systems, organizations that have a mandate to take care of people or do things for the government. The government payments are everywhere. This is also international. I mean, there are countries where we have an agreement to pay part of their healthcare systems or part of their educational systems because we want to enjoy a good relationship with that country. It benefits the United States in some way to make these payments. We pay for HIV treatments in Africa, and I just read yesterday, no more. In fact, the ones that have already been there and deployed and paid for, they can't use. It's simply not possible. Can't give them out even though they're already there. This is madness. So Trump's plan here is really about destabilization. It's about creating turmoil. It's about gathering power. It's about seeing what the limits of his power are early on in his presidency. Like the chyron on the screen say, it's been 10 days, but it feels like a million. There have been so many things coming through in the last week, and today there was a terrible plane crash, and in the last days there has been, of course, the shutdown, and now RFK Jr. and his terrible HHS nomination, Pete Hegseth and the Defense Department nomination, and now he's saying that the military is too woke and it doesn't need diversity. I mean, I just can't continue day after day feeling as poorly as I feel in the last week. So I thought today we would do something a little fun and, see what happens. Now, this is the part of this show that I truly enjoy. This is when I take time out to recognize the dipshits out there and how bad they are. Now, whether it's just poor choices, outrageous acts, or simply crimes, these are the dipshits that I picked for our very first installment called These Dipshits. So before we start this first time, if it's not already clear, I am blatantly stealing this bit from one of my all-time political and broadcast favorites, Keith Olbermann. Mr. Olbermann has been entertaining us with his worst persons in the world for a very long time. It's a great bit, and I will be lousy thieving it from him, but I'm going to do it anyways. And if I ever become rich and famous because of this little bit, I will let him know and maybe buy him a dinner, but I doubt that's going to happen. Okay, so who's the first ever dipshit on our show? That, my friend, is Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey. He's a former senator who has been sentenced to 11 years in prison for bribery and corruption charges. Menendez was found guilty of accepting gifts, including gold bars and cash, in exchange for helping foreign governments, particularly Egypt, in the U.S. Senate. Prosecutors had sought a 15-year sentence for him. I mean, that's an enormous amount of time. You'd think if you're a white-collar criminal, and you're not going to get 15 years. But 15 years is what they wanted. While Menendez's lawyers had called for a shorter sentence with some community service, the judge gave him 11 years instead. That's also a really long time. Now, Menendez has denied wrongdoing and plans to appeal the guilty verdict. Most people think this will fail. The trial was very clear, and the outcome was also very straightforward. His wife, Nadine, also goes on trial for bribery and extortion for supporting Bob's crimes. She was instrumental in passing messages between the foreign governments and Bob, trying to be a go-between, and she's going to get rung up for a serious amount of time, I think, as well. Now, I don't have the photos because it's a podcast, but if you saw them, you would see gold bars and cash stored throughout his house. This is what the FBI found when they searched his home. They found cash and gold bars and all sorts of incriminating evidence. It was like a evidence menu just waiting for them to read off. So good luck, Bob. I don't think your appeal's going anywhere, and I think you're pretty happy you didn't get 15 years. You can just spend 11 years in a nice minimum security prison playing backgammon and hanging out in the weight room. Okay, dipshit number 2, and this is really, really one that's fabulous. I love this one. This is none other than our friend RFK Jr. Now, he faced a tense confirmation hearing for his nomination as Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary position. Democrats questioned him and grilled him over his offensive statements on vaccines, abortion rights, and a bunch of other issues. He denied being anti-vaccine, but his past comments on the topic are clear, and they were brought up in detail during the hearing. He refused to commit about reaping financial gains from lawsuits against drug companies or money from infant onesies that had the words unvaxxed, unafraid, and no vax, no problem written on these tiny little pieces of clothing. A onesie is like a small little t-shirt that an infant child wears, and it means onesie because you slip it over the head and over the arms and then down the body, and it snaps shut over the kid's diaper. And so you're talking about a political statement made by a parent that said, my child, my infant child, who's just come into this world, is unvaccinated and unafraid. And this is pretty horrific stuff. The Republicans loved it, and he's probably going to be confirmed. Way to go, Bobby, they said. The Democrats actually did pretty well during the hearing. I saw some parts of the hearing live myself, and they were surprisingly forceful. Bernie Sanders particularly was great. He really went at him hard, and it was tough on him. These Senate confirmation hearings are supposed to be about the Congress, particularly the Senate of the Congress, looking at the presidential nominees, asking them questions, and then making a recommendation for the full Senate to vote whether this person should fill the position or not, whether they are qualified or not. This process is called advise and consent, and it's part of the foundation of the United States government. What's happening today is that's just not going on. You see, the United States government was set up with 3 different branches. The judicial branch has the Supreme Court, the executive branch has the presidency, and the legislative branch has the Congress. This is the House and the Senate. And these are called co-equal branches of government. And each one of these is supposed to have an influencing opinion on the other branches. And it's supposed to keep all the other branches kind of in check. So one particular branch, like the executive branch with President Trump, doesn't go and just do whatever they want. There's supposed to be some controls. But in this case, there are no controls. The members of Congress believe that since Trump supported their election campaign and since they're in the Republican Party, they should simply do whatever he wants them to do. And this goes completely against what the structure of the United States is all about. So what we have today is nominees for different important roles in the government. They're called cabinet positions. And each one of these people heads a different part of the government. In RFK Jr.'s position, he's heading up the Health and Human Services Department. And this agency, they're called, is responsible for everything from healthcare to vaccines to, the Centers for Disease Control, the entire health apparatus of the United States government. And the person that was nominated by Trump is anti-vaccine and anti-health. And he has a lot of very strange views about what health is. And he might be the single worst person on the planet to put in that role. Yet the Republicans in the Senate, they're not really taking this seriously. They don't say anything against him. They ask him some questions and it just goes on. Because the Republicans have a majority of votes in the Senate, that means this person will be confirmed. And no matter what the Democratic Party says or does, they have no power to stop these nominations. And this is really unfortunate, and it is not the way it's supposed to go. If a nominee is clearly unfit, they should not be confirmed and the Senate should use its power to advise and consent the president that this nominee is simply not okay. But we're not living in that world right now. We're living in a uni-party world where the Republican Party controls all facets of government, and they're just going to do the things they're going to do. So the vote now is going to be along party lines. I'm disappointed that some other nominations were not along party lines, meaning Democrats also voted for Trump's candidates, such as Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. He was fully confirmed, 99-0. Every Democrat voted for that person, and it's a travesty. It's really terrible. It's unbelievable that that happened. And in this case, I think the Democrats are really going to have a problem politically if they keep doing this. So there are a few holdouts right now, meaning it's possible that a Democratic senator could vote in favor of RFK Jr. Sheldon Whitehouse was his Harvard roommate, and he's very simpatico towards RFK Jr. I don't know how this is going to happen, but it's going to be a problem if a Democrat actually votes to confirm one of these nominees. And now, for the biggest dipshit of the day, we have a person who's been on the job for one day. Not even a day, I think, maybe less than a day. And this is Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. Now, he said today that the deadly collision between an American Airlines passenger jet landing in Washington and a U.S. military helicopter was absolutely preventable. Now, I don't know if that's true. Nobody knows if that's true. An investigation has to happen. They need to look at all of the data. They need to look at all of the recorded information about the flight patterns and everything. You know, they really need to understand what happens. These are the investigators of the government. But what he said was, it's obviously not standard to have aircraft collide. I want to be clear about this now. So the Transportation Secretary is reminding everyone that it's the policy of the United States government to not have airplanes collide. I can't think of a stupider thing to say during the first moments of a tragedy. But that's what we get when we have these MAGA people in positions of power. We're going to get this kind of stuff, and it's terrible. Now, I'm not laughing at the tragedy of this, but I'm laughing at the absurdity of these people. It's simply unbelievably crazy that we have so unqualified people in positions of power. This is like when Trump was describing a hurricane a few years ago, and he said, in terms of water, it's very wet. I mean, they cannot think. They cannot speak. They are complete morons. All of them. The MAGA people are just idiots from start to finish. And Sean Duffy stepped in perfectly today. You know, he was just confirmed in this role the day before the crash, and he agrees with Trump's assessment that the incident, quote, looks like it should have been prevented. Of course it should have been prevented. It's just completely dumb. He is our biggest dipshit of today. Sean Duffy, congratulations, you're the one. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for today. I hope you had a good time listening. I had a good time recording. I think we'll try to do these dipshits a little more often, but not every time. Just kind of mix it up now and again. So thanks a lot. Do all of that great, liking and subscribing stuff. Make sure you click the buttons, leave a review, 5 stars, all those things. It really helps get more people interested to listen to it. And, it's really nice to see if someone enjoys your work, and it's motivating for me to continue making these episodes. Please check me out on Blue Sky and at our website, difficultopinions.com. Everything is there. And until next time, cheers.